The courtroom buzzed with tension as the judge called the next witness. Reporters leaned forward, cameras zoomed in, and the crowd held its breath. Then came the name that sent a ripple through the room: Katt Williams. A murmur swept through the gallery. Some looked surprised, others excited. Diddy's lawyers exchanged glances. For years, Katt had been known for his sharp wit, brutal honesty, and refusal to play games. Now, he was about to take the stand in one of the most explosive trials in entertainment history. As the bailiff opened the door, all eyes turned toward the entrance. The comedian, actor, and cultural commentator stepped inside with his signature swagger. Tight jeans, designer sunglasses pushed up on his forehead, and a look that said he wasn't here to mess around. He walked straight to the witness stand without hesitation, adjusted the microphone, and took a moment before speaking. His voice was calm but carried weight. "I didn't come here to make you laugh," he said, scanning the room. "I came here to tell the truth. And trust me, some of you ain't gonna like what you hear." The prosecutor nodded, ready to begin. The judge gave a stern warning about decorum, but it was clear this testimony was going to be different. Because unlike other witnesses, Katt wasn't afraid. He wasn't trying to protect anyone. And now, the world was about to find out why. Katt sat tall in the witness chair, arms resting on the armrests, like a man who owned the space. The courtroom felt heavier, charged with anticipation. He glanced at Diddy, then back at the judge. "Your Honor," he began, "I want to make something clear. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because I have things to say that need to be heard." His tone was measured, but there was an unmistakable edge beneath it. The judge nodded. The prosecutor stepped forward. "Mr. Williams, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" Katt raised his hand without hesitation. "Yes, sir," he said, voice firm. "And I mean every word of it." When he lowered his hand, he turned directly to the jury. "Y'all don't know me, but I know y'all are looking for the real story. Not the headlines, not the rumors, not the late-night jokes. Just the truth." He let that settle before continuing. "I've been around this business long enough to know how it works. I've seen the highs, the lows, the parties, the secrets. And I've met people who wear smiles but carry shadows behind their eyes." He paused, then added, "One of those men is sitting right over there." All heads turned toward Diddy, whose face remained unreadable, though his fingers twitched slightly on the table. Katt noticed. He smiled faintly. "Yeah," he said, "you know exactly what I'm talking about." The prosecutor cleared his throat, bringing focus back. "Mr. Williams, can you describe your first interaction with Mr. Combs?" Katt leaned back, closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with clarity. "Sure thing," he said. "It was back in the early 2000s. I was doing shows, making moves, and getting invited to the right places. One night, I got a call saying Diddy wanted me at his party. You don't say no to that kind of invitation. So I went." He exhaled slowly. "That was the beginning of a lot of things. Some good, most bad." As Katt continued recounting his early experiences with Diddy, the courtroom seemed to shrink around him. His words painted a picture of glamour, excess, and danger lurking just beneath the surface. "I remember walking into that house in Miami," he said, voice steady but laced with intensity. "Everything was perfect. Lights, music, food. But something felt off. It wasn't just a party. It was a performance." He described the atmosphere. Guests dressed in designer clothes, champagne flowing, security guards watching every move. But more than that, he noticed how people acted around Diddy. Not just admiration, but fear. You could feel it, Katt explained. Like, if you made the wrong move, you weren't just losing a job. You were losing access, influence, maybe even safety. He recalled seeing celebrities he recognized, names he wouldn't say aloud yet, but promised to reveal when necessary. Some of these folks, he said, shaking his head, they knew exactly what was going on. They just played dumb so they could keep eating from the same plate. The prosecutor asked if anything unusual happened during that first visit. Katt smirked. "Oh yeah," he replied. "I saw the first red flag." He described a moment when a guest, a young woman barely 20, was pulled aside by one of Diddy's assistants. She looked nervous, almost scared. Before she disappeared down a hallway, she caught Katt's eye. He tried to follow, but a guard blocked his path. "Move along," the man muttered. Katt didn't push, not then. But he remembered that look, the fear in her eyes, the way she seemed trapped. He didn't know what happened after that. He would later learn the truth. But for now, he kept talking, peeling back layers of the carefully constructed illusions surrounding Diddy's world. "These parties," he said, leaning forward, "weren't just fun. They were controlled. Every detail, from who got in, to what rooms were open, to what was served, was orchestrated." He looked directly at the jury. "And if you weren't part of the inner circle, you didn't ask questions. You just smiled and stayed quiet." The courtroom remained silent, absorbing every word. Katt's testimony took a darker turn as he described the hidden side of Diddy's infamous gatherings. "People think these parties were just wild nights with too much alcohol and too many egos," he said, his voice low but firm. "But that's not the full story. There was a system in place, a structure designed to keep people in line and secrets buried." He detailed how guests were required to sign NDAs before entering certain events. Phones were collected at the door, and attendees were given wristbands with codes that determined which areas they could access. "If you didn't have the right color," Katt explained, "you weren't getting past the velvet ropes." He described how some rooms were locked, guarded by men who never spoke unless ordered. Inside those rooms, he claimed, were things that should never have been allowed to happen. "I didn't see everything," he admitted. "But I heard things. Screams muffled behind thick walls, crying, whispers in the hallways. And I saw people leave those rooms changed. Some never came back." The prosecutor pressed him for details. Katt hesitated before naming the first major figure connected to Diddy's network. "There was a producer," he said. "Big name. Used to run half the studios in LA. He was always at Diddy's events, always smiling, always clapping when the music hit right." Katt's expression darkened. "But I saw him once, alone, in a hallway, whispering to Diddy. Whatever they were talking about, it scared the hell out of him." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. "Later, that guy vanished from the industry. No explanation, no comeback tour, just gone." The courtroom murmured. The judge silenced the room with a sharp rap of the gavel. Katt continued. "I used to think silence was protection, that if I didn't speak up, I'd stay safe. But I was wrong. Silence doesn't protect. It enables." He looked directly at Diddy. "And I'm done being silent." Katt's revelations grew even more damning as he delved deeper into the horrors he witnessed behind closed doors. "I remember one night," he began, voice tight with emotion, "at Diddy's mansion in Las Vegas. It was supposed to be a celebration, an awards after-party or something, but it didn't feel like a party. It felt like a setup." He described how the mood shifted as the night wore on. Guests became quieter, more withdrawn. Security tightened. Certain individuals were ushered into private rooms, while others were subtly removed from the main area. I was in the living room, Katt continued, talking to someone I barely knew, when I heard it, a scream. Not playful, not drunk, terrified. He stopped, swallowing hard. I followed the sound. It led me upstairs, where most people weren't allowed. I saw a door cracked open, just enough to catch a glimpse of what was happening inside. He shook his head. What I saw, I wish I hadn't. There was a girl, she couldn't have been older than 18, on the floor. Someone was standing over her, holding her down. Another person was recording it. He looked at the jury, his voice breaking slightly. I didn't go in. I didn't stop it. I just stood there, frozen, until someone pulled me away. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge quickly silenced everyone. Katt wiped his eyes before continuing. After that, I started noticing patterns. These things weren't random. They were planned. And Diddy wasn't just present. He was orchestrating it. He named another location, Diddy's yacht off the coast of the Bahamas. That boat wasn't just a luxury cruise, he said. It was a prison for some of those girls. I saw them get taken below deck, watched as the crew made sure no one interrupted whatever was happening down there. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, I know this sounds unbelievable, but I swear to God, this is the truth. The prosecutor nodded, visibly shaken. Did Diddy ever acknowledge what was happening? He asked. Katt's voice dropped to a whisper. He laughed about it. Katt's testimony reached a new level of intensity when he revealed the existence of secret recordings allegedly kept by Diddy as leverage against powerful figures. I found out about the tapes, he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. Not all of them, but enough to understand what they were for. He explained how Diddy allegedly stored incriminating footage in a hidden vault within his home, one that required biometric access and was monitored by a private security team. This wasn't just about blackmail, Katt clarified. It was about control. If you did something stupid, something reckless, something illegal, Diddy had it on tape. And if you ever tried to step out of line, he'd remind you. He named several celebrities who, according to what he had learned, were allegedly blackmailed into silence. One of them, he said, was a top-tier action star. Big box office, huge ego. Got caught doing something he shouldn't have at one of Diddy's parties. Next thing you know, he's suddenly loyal to Diddy like they're blood brothers. He shook his head. Another was a well-known female musician, someone millions of people look up to. She tried to walk away once. Within weeks, her label dropped her, her endorsements vanished, and her management team was replaced overnight. Katt looked directly at the jury. This wasn't coincidence. This was calculated. He described how Diddy allegedly used these tapes not just to silence individuals, but to manipulate entire industries. If you crossed him, you didn't just lose your career. You lost your freedom. Because he had proof. Proof that could destroy you if he chose to release it. The prosecutor displayed a redacted document obtained from law enforcement sources, showing references to a secure storage facility linked to Diddy's estate. This confirms the existence of the vault, the prosecutor stated. Diddy's lawyers immediately objected, but the judge overruled them. Katt leaned forward, gripping the edges of the witness stand. You all thought you were untouchable, he said, addressing the unseen forces protecting Diddy. But I'm not afraid of you anymore. He looked at the judge. Let me tell you what else I know. Katt's final bombshell stunned the courtroom into near silence. I've told you about the parties, he said, voice lower now, more intense. About the NDAs, the cameras, the tapes, about the screams behind closed doors. But what I haven't told you yet is who was really backing this operation. Who had Diddy's back when the pressure started mounting? He paused, scanning the room. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about power. It was about politics. And I'm not talking about Hollywood politics. I'm talking about real government-level involvement. He described secret meetings he claimed Diddy had with high-ranking officials, diplomats, intelligence agents, even members of Congress. I didn't attend these meetings myself, Katt admitted, but I heard about them. People talk. And when you start hearing the same names over and over again, you realize this isn't just one man's operation. It's a network. He named a former U.S. ambassador, someone with deep ties to both the entertainment industry and national security circles. This man, Katt said, wasn't just a friend of Diddy's. He was a protector. Whenever things got too hot, whenever investigations started poking around, this guy would step in and make sure nothing stuck. He described how Diddy allegedly used his connections to silence legal inquiries, redirect police investigations, and ensure that victims stayed quiet. They weren't just covering up scandals, Katt insisted. They were protecting a system, one built on secrecy, fear, and control. He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I know this sounds like conspiracy theory stuff, but I've seen the emails, I've heard the conversations, and I know people who paid the price for speaking out." The prosecutor played a secretly recorded conversation between Diddy and a senior official, discussing how to manage public perception during a previous scandal. The audio was grainy, but clear enough to send shockwaves through the courtroom. Diddy finally snapped. "Your Honor!" he shouted, rising from his seat. "You have to stop this. This is a setup." The judge slammed the gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Combs," he warned, "or I'll hold you in contempt." Diddy sat, but his hands trembled. Katt stared at him, unflinching. "You thought you were untouchable," he whispered. "But the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes years." The judge called for a recess, but the damage was done. The world now knew this case wasn't just about one man. It was about an entire system built on silence, and Katt Williams had just shattered it. The fallout from Katt Williams's testimony was immediate and seismic. News outlets across the country ran headlines detailing his shocking revelations, dissecting every word he had spoken under oath. Social media exploded with reactions, some praising his courage, others questioning his motives, and many simply stunned by the scale of what had been exposed. Celebrities who had previously avoided commenting on the trial now found themselves forced to address the allegations, either distancing themselves from Diddy or remaining silent in fear of implication. Legal experts weighed in, analyzing the potential consequences of Katt's claims regarding blackmail, hidden tapes, and government involvement. "This changes everything," one analyst noted on live television. The prosecution just introduced credible testimony linking Diddy not just to personal misconduct, but to a structured operation involving coercion, surveillance, and political interference. That's not just a criminal case, that's a national security concern. Meanwhile, the defense team scrambled to contain the damage, issuing statements denying any wrongdoing and attempting to discredit Katt's account. But the tide had already turned. The public was no longer focused solely on Diddy's actions. It was now asking broader questions about who else might be involved, who had benefited from the system Katt had described, and who had worked to keep it hidden for so long. Protests emerged outside Diddy's properties, demanding justice for alleged victims. Victims' rights organizations released statements supporting survivors and calling for greater protections for those who had remained silent out of fear. The courtroom itself became a battleground of legal maneuvering, with judges reviewing newly submitted evidence and prosecutors preparing for further testimonies. Katt's words had not only reshaped the narrative of the trial, they had ignited a movement. And as the legal battle continued, one thing was clear: the world had changed. The veil had been lifted, and there was no going back. As the dust settled on Katt Williams's historic testimony, the courtroom fell into a rare moment of stillness. The weight of what had been said lingered in the air like thunder after a storm. The judge remained seated, processing the implications of the final revelations. The jury sat motionless, absorbing every word, knowing they now carried the burden of delivering justice in a case far bigger than they had ever anticipated. Across the room, Diddy sat pale-faced, staring at the table, his usual confidence stripped away. For the first time, he looked truly vulnerable. Katt Williams, meanwhile, sat tall in the witness chair, no longer just a comedian, but a man who had spoken truth to power and changed the course of history. His voice had broken the silence that had protected monsters for decades. His testimony had exposed a system built on fear, manipulation, and corruption. And now, the world was listening. The courtroom camera captured his final moments on the stand. His eyes tired but resolute, his posture unwavering. He had come to tell the truth, and he had done it without hesitation. As the judge thanked him and dismissed him from the stand, Katt stood slowly, adjusted his jacket, and gave a small nod to the jury. "You all got this," he said quietly. Then, without looking back at Diddy, he walked out of the courtroom, leaving behind a legacy of courage, integrity, and defiance. Outside, reporters swarmed him with questions, but he simply smiled, raised a hand, and said, "The truth matters. Always has. Always will." With that, he disappeared into the crowd, leaving the world to grapple with the reality he had just exposed. The trial would continue, the fight for justice ongoing. But one thing was certain: Katt Williams had done his part, and he had done it with honor.